You one of them? You in there, yeah. Look, I heard about these people. They're running around here. Somebody told me they were over here. Just seeing if they're all hanging out here. You part of this bubblegum team I heard about? You can tell me. It's okay. I heard this bubblegum team was out there fighting what they think of are bad people. And they're out there trying to help the good people with the whole bubblegum team. And if you're part of it, mister, you're going down! My hair is going up! The bubblegum team is in trouble. And they're going to be stopped. It's just not going to work. There's no way we can stop this. This whole craziness that's happening in the world. It can't be stopped. It's overwhelming. Nobody can do nothing. Forget about it. Let it go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Escaping Dystopia. This is episode 14, I think it is. Yep. I just said it. I just saw it. Episode 14. The corrupt cabinet cometh from the great east north. There's this place, you can see it from certain portions of Alaska. Oh, sorry. Hi, everyone. It's called Russia. They live over there, and they're a little bit over there next to us. We're going to get to them a little bit later. We'll talk about some other stuff. Again, anybody, feel free. Better than Are there 14 Star Trek movies? I don't know how many there are now. Did the new ones even count? I'm not really sure. I haven't actually, I'll be honest, I haven't watched the latest Star Trek movie. The last one, they've become like just their action movies in space. Which is fun. It's fun. But it's not, Star Trek style. Anyway. I'll not chew ice during the show. Hopefully I can figure out not to do that. So, I was going to start out with some news from this week. I know it's been a long week and people have already forgotten the crazy stuff where the week started out. Where the new coming in Republican Congress tried to get rid of the ethics office, the independent governmental ethics office. You're going to see, and this is part of the issue, this is one of the big questions about what's going to happen here to the U.S., is whether or not our institutions can stand up to institutional hardcore corruption. And this public ethics office, having their independence, is one of those first things that was up for the test immediately. Like, boom, 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 welcome to it. Welcome to 2017, now we're doing this. So there was huge public outcry. Tons of people called their congressman and got on it. They essentially kind of reversed course on this. I'm not sure. I didn't read a couple of the backstories. I might check them out later. But it looked like it was Gohmert, Louis Gohmert, and a couple other really just horrible. That was it. That was the Farenthold guy, the guy with the ducky pajamas. That guy trying to do this, because I think there's a bunch of people who. Going to have some investigations coming up pretty soon for what happened during the campaign, so trying to weaken that before anything too bad happens. So they tried to weaken this, and they do it with like this line of code. Essentially, it's legal code, and they say, you guys are now officially under the office or the ethics committee, so you're not independent anymore, and we control those in your money there. So huge public outcry, and then there's a tweet from Tweedledee, and then they reverse course, and then a number of media outlets like give him credit for calling them out and trying to hold up the. That's some thumbs up. What's up, Nita? Some serious thumbs up there, thank you. So they give him some reverse course. So here's the thing, though. When they try and do this as one of their first acts, this is not something that's going to go away. So they're gonna come back and do this again, and strip away the Independence Office ethics investigations. This is just the first of these, folks. Get kind of used to that a little bit. we saw that also now coming up in the huge hypocrisy from Mitch McConnell. Turtle face, Turtle, well, I don't think we can actually, vet anyone. They're billionaires, and I think we know that they've been so successful in their private life that we can just assume that they'll be good for the country. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but it don't work like that, kiddos. We've got, again, there's the question, a lot of laws about doing stuff with government power to enrich yourself. Speaking of enriching yourself, as we move along, I talked a little bit this week. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about this because a lot of people don't understand this whole thing. But Bitcoin this week, there was it jumped up in the news a few times. Let me check what the price is right now. It actually came down quite a bit. I expected that to happen once it hit that psychologically important, there you go, $1,000 mark, because I think a lot of people who have bought in to a certain degree had it ready to sell at that point. And so when you sell, that of course drives the price down. So today, as of right now, at this moment, excuse me, one Bitcoin is equal to $899 US. A dollar is worth something. We have a strong dollar right now. We could go through this whole. I was going to have a little bit of discussion about the value and nature of money. So we have on this one point, and these are our two things: the Bitcoin. And then we have the U.S. dollar. Now, right now, the U.S. dollar has its value because we all believe that it has value, and it gets paid for and used for debt. This is a little bit kind of being a little trite here, but we have what's called fiat money. A long time ago, you could exchange the money that you had for gold, and it was gold or silver-backed currency. This caused major problems because any system like that was quite exploitable. If you just A, found more gold, or B, took someone else's gold, you would take their money. Or if you found a way to take all their money and then be like, hey, give me all your gold, and then you'd take all their gold, and then you'd be like, you don't have any money now, what are you going to do? Certain market irregularities developed because of that gold standard system, particularly during times of war. When people are like, well, I guess we're going to mess with, we're using the same gold? Yeah, we're going to fight. Oh, give us that. So anyway, after that, the way money works became a little bit more complicated and also kind of simpler, and that people can essentially just declare that they have certain amounts of money, and then those are backed up by the fact that when somebody tries to collect that money, they pay them. And that exchange rate and exchange system is a big part of our background. I'm not going to go too much into it more, but that's where the value and backing of the dollar system comes up. Now, for something like Bitcoin that doesn't have any of that, you kind of wonder, like, how does it have value? Like, what is it doing with that value? Where's that coming from, that notion, that concept? And here you move into the notion of utility for a money system in and of itself. One of the best examples of this is actually from a game, Civilization. If anybody ever played Civilization out there, when you discover currency and all of a sudden your markets become much more efficient as you transfer value between you individuals, and they exchange those value increments, right, to make the market more efficient. That value that is provided to the market, that utility, is a value in of itself, and that is part of what is represented by the value that's in and of self, in and of the Bitcoin or any monetary system. If nobody is using a monetary system, if you can't buy anything with it, it has no value. But the more things that it becomes a part of and can represent, the more value it has itself. It's kind of a networked effect a network effect, if you will, as these things work together. For those of you who are unfamiliar with what a Bitcoin is in particular, it is a particular solution to an equation. Nita, by the way, this is kind of goes up to... I might have to throw one of these on your page because you're throwing all those equations up, but this is a really difficult equation to solve. And I believe there's something like 21 million solutions to it, but they get progressively harder to find. And each new solution to that equation is a Bitcoin. And because it's a unique solution, you then track who has ownership of that solution in what's called a blockchain. This is how the whole thing works. Technically on that side from a very simple standpoint. And so it is a real thing that works. I would recommend for those of you who don't know to slowly buy some, because I think one day they're going to be worth 5 or 6 figures pretty easy. Especially after they stop mining new ones and people still use them for a bit. So, moving on to one of my other fun things from this week was the repeal of Obamacare, which is starting slowly and then stopping. The problem with this is, as noted, 20 million people are using this, and it actually controls, I wouldn't say controls, that's actually the wrong word, but helps regulate roughly about a third of the U.S. economy. And there's a lot of laws and regulations involved in that. This is what they're trying to deal with now. It looks like the plan is going to be to get rid of, like I said, get the taxes gone, get the mandate gone, and then sit back and watch as the market kind of eats itself, and then claim to be able to come in 2018 or 2020 and be able to fix it. The other concrete aspect of their Obamacare repeal and fix is defunding Planned Parenthood, which they moved for this week, which kind of sucks all the way around. These are, again, the kind of things that are based on... And when they did this in the vote in Congress, they actually talked about all those BS videos with the... whatever... that I hate to even bring more attention to those people who like on this stuff. No worries, Chris. Take your time. My connection is weak on this side, too, as I keep going. So, their plan is to do the real quick, short-term stuff, do the taxes, the mandate, Planned Parenthood, which they consider part of Obamacare now, I'm thinking, I guess. I don't know. But their actual plan to fix and replace it, their better solution, just does not exist anywhere in a form that enjoys majority Republican support. So they don't actually have a plan to fix this. And this, you'll see this happen again and again and again and again, where they know that they hate something, and they know they don't like it, and they know they don't want it, but from a governing standpoint, being able to provide a better solution is not something that they are particularly adept at. And you'll see this again and again. Even now, you're seeing them try to blame this on the Democrats, that the fact that they can't get this right and don't have, after 6 years of claiming to have an answer at the ready, don't have an actual thing. You're going to see them try and play it off until the next election, claiming that this election was about repealing it, the next election is about replacing it, so just vote for us again and we'll fix it, but it's all their fault for the moment. You're going to see that over and over and over again. That'll be fun. And we'll keep laughing at it when it happens. So that's one of the things we do here on Bubblegum Team, is laugh at it when it's funny. Speaking of laughing, so there's going to be, and this isn't our last show before it, so I don't have final recommendations for that inauguration dark day, but just understand this, right? For someone who doesn't believe really much of anything they say, and it's just like the whole swearing in ceremony, right? And so he's going to put his hand on a Bible that he doesn't believe in, and just, you know, it's kind of like
So you trust me more if I say this, right? How do I need to say it so you trust me the most? I totally will do whatever I say that you say I want me to do. You know, it's just a farce of it. The guy, because he's just so incredibly dishonest. What does a swear, what does I put my hand on the Bible and say I believe this mean to someone like this? I mean, even right now, even when he's building this hotel or renovating the hotel in D.C., he's got roughly like $5 million worth of unpaid bills with contractors, right, workers who haven't gotten paid and had to file lawsuits to get paid. And this is the person who's going to be sworn in right down the street from a hotel where he's ripping people off to do this kind of stuff. So something of a farce on that side for a swearing-in ceremony. I wanted to shift gears a little bit because I don't want to make this the whole make fun of the moron show, but it's probably going to be that for a little bit sometimes. I do like to get a little bit on the more philosophical side, especially for political science and considerations. One of the things I've always been interested about, and this goes back to those labels that people use to call themselves, and this is my, how did my summary of this go? The difference between libertarians and liberals. This one's pretty straightforward. It has to do with, and I wrote it right here, it's like, women's rights. That's pretty much it. Because as my tribe, if you will, has always been like the white guy tribe, and the people who are really interested in politics always has been this big libertarian bent. I myself dabbled in Randianism when I was a teenager and read the books and felt so powerful, and I will just simply do my thing and I will be the everything that goes with it. And as you go through life, you start to see that there's a certain correspondence between this. And I actually looked up the demographics, at least as far as I could find. I found a little source for this. I'll link it on the website and all that. But it was roughly, if you've ever hung out with libertarians or familiar with this, it's like more than 2/3, 68% of libertarians are men, while 32% are women. They're also racially homogeneous, with nearly all 94% libertarians identifying as non-Hispanic whites. You're going to see this, the Trump, as Trump starts to falter and the job growth reverses and some of the economic growth, and you see some of this idiotic things that he do start to come back and build a little bit. You're going to see a lot of people claiming to be libertarians again. More so because it's where a lot of the refuge goes when the Republicans get really ridiculous. But that's always been, and I've noticed this again and again, and I'll bring this up. It's always fun to talk to libertarians about this because it's such a massive blind spot in this notion of, everyone can just be free to enjoy their privilege in society and then everyone will be equal, right? And it's all like, vastly majority white men who get to be like, let's just let everybody just be free, as it were, and enjoy their perfect place, as it were, on the top of the heap. Because everybody's on the top of the heap, right? You guys are all like just because you got there. And so that's always been just a fun aspect of libertarianism. And I kick them around a lot. They're one of my fun chew toys as we go to over the years. So I wanted to talk about that just for a moment and cover that, get that on ye old film. I found out I can actually download the Facebook Live videos, which means I can do a whole DVD and re-edit stuff so I can not look like such a fool sometimes, and then take those few moments where I do make some sort of insightful comment and then bring it up again later. It'll be fun. If that ever happens, the show is just, it is what it is. Now, speaking of avoiding dystopian future, let's talk about the main thing that kind of happened this week. The Russian hacking. They hacked the election. They took over all the voting machines and made them go Trump. And if that's not the case, then nothing happened and it didn't matter. And if you can't prove that they made all the votes go to Trump, then it wasn't really the Russians and whatnot, and stupid face. So, I've heard a lot of strange rationalizations and whatnot, or ignoring the severity of this coming from the president-elect, as they've made a number of strange rationalizations to avoid dealing with something of, shall we say, the reality of the situation. It's pretty clear now, again, like we were saying, that it was a directed by Putin effort to help Trump by discrediting the DNC and our election process, which happened a lot. I went over this a lot last week. I don't know if the sound was good, but anybody who you remember going, like, quoting WikiLeaks stuff during the election or, the campaign was helping the Russians out and working and using the material provided by their intelligence operations to influence our elections. And there were lots of people doing that, including Trump quite a bit. And then to come around and claim that this had no effect whatsoever on the election after this was one of the main things he talked about for last month is an absurdity worthy of just kind of response. The other one that just was hilarious was little dirty Assange complaining about the NBC getting a look at the report coming out of the CIA, the intelligence report. The fact that he's complaining that... So he's trying to explain... Assange is trying to hold his credibility, whatever you can call his credibility, basically based on the idea that, oh no, it wasn't the Russian government. He actually, if you watch what he actually says, claiming it was a Russian unaffiliated with the government, that he just happened to know who, whatever, gave him the info, and he's not. No, I totally know it wasn't a foreign agent. Right? Sure you do, Assange. Uh-oh. I think everything's going to be okay up there. Sorry, big crash. I don't know how good my speakers are. So we have, again, this situation. We have this guy who is this foreign agent calling into question the conclusions of our own intelligence services and saying, yeah, you're claiming that this came from the Russians, but I know a little better. Yeah, so I don't know what credibility Assange has outside of that particular crew, but again, WikiLeaks was the Russian thing, so it's kind of one of those questions. On whether or not people know stuff, right? So if all the Bernie or bust people who ended up being busts, as they were quoting the WikiLeaks over and over again, quite get this question again goes back to that notion of knowing things. And we talked about this a little bit before in my boy Feynman's notion that, unless you can explain it to an 8-year-old, you actually don't understand something yourself. And then I was thinking about that a little bit, and that's kind of how we test all our teachers on whether or not they can teach an 8-year-old how to answer a question on a test, and then they can then prove that they know how to teach, as they know the stuff, or which they end up teaching or knowing how to answer a test. And the thing that I'm kind of transitioning a little bit into my next topic, which is a little bit of that testing. There was a really interesting article I posted this week on the Huffington Post about some of the standardized tests and the issues with those. We're going to run into this a little bit more with the new Education Secretary, Betsy DeVos, who also has not filed her financial disclosure and is also a billionaire, who also has wildly huge conflicts of interest. But this question of testing and then moving into charters because they're not passing all their standardized tests, so we got to do it this way, and then the charter's doing it, and then be like, well, you don't have any authority to test us. Ha 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 ha. So we'll see how that works. But this came about because the standardized tests that are being given in Texas reference a poet in one of her poems. And one of the questions, or a couple of questions, are, what is this poet thinking, or why are they trying to do this, or what was the point of adding a line break in between here and separating these two thoughts? And she's writing about this test and saying, well, it was a spoken word poem. That was just kind of the natural break. So you hit enter, and then there was why did they add this as, being all caps? And she's like, well, I kind of did that when I revised it and just felt that, it. And so these are actual questions on this. And so these are the tests. And so you have kind of these weird tests, and then there's this ambiguity part of these kind of tests. And so the way that you deal with ambiguity in testing is through repetition. So that doesn't quite really work because now you're doing these kind of tests all the time. So this issue of understanding and knowing what's going on in our education system is a difficult one. And as we're going to move to, you're going to see an attempt for sea changes to the way that the U.S. works, and just be very, very skeptical. I think we need to resist very strongly on this one. Just so people can know that this kind of stuff is just not what we want to be doing education-wise. Is it the strip mall charter schools? I much prefer like this investing in our education and investing in buildings and investing in education as an infrastructure where you're investing in teachers for a generation, and not this thing where teachers become a minimum wage, press a button kind of job. And I hate to see that move towards, and I'm afraid we're going to see that really strong coming up. And so be skeptical of some of the results that come out of this stuff as things change, and we're moving forward on the education stuff. I mean, to be evaluated on that, whether or not you can convince someone to answer these questions right when the person who actually wrote it doesn't know what they're going to do. I don't know. To me, that's a little sketchy, like a little bit like maybe we should back up. So the whole back up and slow down thing is going to be tough because these guys want to go full bore ahead with the stuff they've been trying to do. That's why you're not going to see much resistance from the Republicans. You're going to see a lot of deal making between, you scratch my back, we'll scratch yours, we're all going to let this all go forward. You're probably going to see a law from Congress that makes it okay for Trump not to have to sell his stuff. Because he does. And there was another quote, and this was actually just today, from part of the Office of Governmental Ethics. These are one of the ones that are going to be interesting, and it's, quote, they run the risk of having inadvertently violated the criminal conflicts of interest restriction at 18 U.S. Code 218, Shaw wrote. If we don't get involved early to prevent problems, we won't be able to help them after the fact. So I think one of the things that they're talking about here, and one of the reasons why the U.S. is a fairly non-corrupt country, is because we have these strong laws against personally profiting from your public position. And I know we have a cynical, and this is the question, is whether or not people are so cynical about our actual situation, if our actual laws, when just blatantly violated, is different than what people think of as the normal day-to-day stuff. Let me give you a quick example. So, and this is what's going to be really dangerous going forward. There was a tweet this week. Sorry. Eventually I'll be able to say that and not just hang my head in shame as an American. But for the moment, there was a tweet this week attacking Toyota about like this silly concept that the president gets to write laws and tariffs. So it caused a roughly like $1.2 billion drop in Toyota's in part of their market cap. Basically, their stock price dropped quite a bit. Now, it is what it is on that side. Because of the fundamentals of the stock market and all that, their price will recover. But if someone knows that this tweet's about to go out, or if someone knows that, oh, if I send him this story, I can get him to send out a tweet attacking this industry or going after this company, the potential for conflict and corrupt just becomes off the charts because he's so easy to manipulate, and there's going to be so many of these moving parts, and this stuff is very illegal. The FBI will still come and get you. I think they would like nothing more, a lot of them, than busting corruption, and I think that still exists because, again, that's the question on, and if they want to try that hard, I mean, sure, he can just turn around and pardon everyone, but this becomes difficult after a little bit. So we're going to see how this goes. On a quick point on this, they put somebody in their security squad, Monica Crowley. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. She's one of the blonde pundits on the McLaughlin Report. She was probably the place that I saw her most. I guess she's on Fox a lot. But just ridiculously dishonest. She had a book that just came out and proved that she was totally plagiarized the whole thing. So this is another one of those quick tests where you have somebody just busted dead to rights on doing something extremely unethical to the point of illegal. And we'll see. I'll see if I can follow up on this next week to see what happens with this, if anything. On one other quick note before we head out, we're going to kind of getting close to closing up. So I don't want to take up all your night. I appreciate anybody who did stop by and watch the show. I'll read you this one real fun, real quick. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen met Sunday in Houston with U.S. Senator Ted Cruz and Texas Governor Greg Abbott, potentially adding to tensions with China after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump broke diplomatic protocol by speaking on the phone with her. China had also urged the U.S. to bar her from transiting the country, and Cruz said the Chinese consulate asked members of Congress to reject meeting with Tsai and to uphold the long-standing policy known as One China. And so they said, nah, we're going to just meet. So we'll see how that's going. So that continues to fester as a fun little Texas two-step with Taiwan, which I guess is a fun way to alliterate that one. That's going on. We got the Russia stuff, but I'll continue to follow up. Thanks, everybody, for watching tonight. Maybe listening, if you did, for a few minutes. This is always fun for me, and I have a good time. We're going to do a little bit of a different thing coming up probably in a couple weeks. We'll see. Has to do with that whole Arrival movie, if you guys have not seen that yet. It's going to be out on video soon, so check it out. It'll make a little bit more sense then as we do some other stuff. But it's not just going to be talking here. We're going to go... Well, we'll talk about that next week. Yeah, feel free, Mario. As always. Thanks for dropping by, dude. I always appreciate everybody watching and whatnot. And please feel free to correct me when I screw things up. So I can get a little better at this and try and make it more interesting. But check out that Arrival movie. It's fun. If you enjoy my stuff, you'll probably like that. Peace. Don't worry about it too much, folks. It is still pretty crazy out there. The guy's nuts. He's an idiot. Just know it. But we'll keep watching and see what happens. So have a good night, and I will talk to you next week, as always, for the next little while. Peace out, skis. Good night. Love y'all. Bubblegum team! Out.